Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. So welcome. I just have a couple of comments. We had ribbon cutting for the new high school, formal, and thanks to the board members who were there. I think we had a great turnout. For me, it just felt like closure, even though, in a sense, even though the building, I realize has been open for students, and we've all been through the building several times, but to do that ribbon cutting felt very good to me. And I want to thank Patrick and Dave and the administrators who helped organize the ceremony, and thanks to the culinary arts folks for putting those boxes of treats together. That was great too. We've had a second comment, really, we've had a good start of the year, I think, for the school, for all our buildings. We'll get that report, that update tonight, both from Patrick and from Katie. And I assume our principals are on if there are any specific questions or comments that they have to offer as well. But we're off to a great year. And I think, at least speaking for myself again, I feel much more optimistic and positive about the start of this school year compared to where we were last September. So that's good. That's progress, at least in my eyes. Okay, item 4.0, we have two sets of minutes. There were minutes from the special board meeting of April or September 20th on the table when you came in. If you've had a chance to glance at those or can do so, that'd be great. I'd like to get a motion to approve both the minutes for August 23rd and the minutes for the September 20 special board meeting. Could I get a motion to that effect? I have a motion by Lou, second by Bill. So take a minute to look at the September 20 minutes and any comments, discussion, corrections. Comments, corrections on the minutes? Yep, Lorna.
I just wanted to propose on the August 23rd minutes under the ESSER 3 or ARP funding section, which is on page 7. Before the last paragraph that starts with board member Jennifer Rich Smith suggested, or after, it doesn't matter. I don't know if it's worth just including that I also had made comments during that presentation that as the list gets worked through and more ideas get added, that we have consideration for long-term fiscal impact at the end of grants. Once the money runs out, basically.
Okay, we'll add that comment to the minutes. Okay. If there's specific wording you'd like to see, you could, reach out to Vita and just get those in the minutes. Okay. So do we have any other discussion or comments on the minutes with which would now include Lorna's amendment or change regarding long-term fiscal impact. Any other comments? No? We have a motion, a motion to approve as amended. Any further discussion? No? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lorna. Item 5.0, adjustments to agenda. Patrick, do you have anything? No? Okay, nor do I. Item 6.0, public session. Anyone in the public, there's no one in the room, would like to address the board, feel free to do so. If not, okay. We did receive a couple of comments which Vida forwarded to us this afternoon that came in for the September 20 special meeting, but because they weren't germane to the agenda, they weren't forwarded to us at that time. But I would note that Elisa Coates and Jeremy Cooper both contacted the board, and their comments, I'm not going to read their comments, but their comments are both the same. They both express concern with the masking in the schools. I think both of their children are elementary level kids. They both expressed concern about masking and urged us to reconsider that decision of the end of August on masking policy. So I thank them for their comments. Okay, item 7.0, committee reports. 7.1, high school building project update. Patrick?
Yes. So Steve already talked about the ribbon cutting. Thank you for those of you that came, and also board members for all your support through the years of making that possible. And I think it was a nice celebration, but also closure in some ways, that this is our official building. And again, just like to thank the community that came out and for everybody that helped organize that. Just a few items that we're working on right now is just temperature in the building. It's tough during the shoulder seasons when you wake up in the morning and it's 45, 50, and then by the end of the day it's 70. So we are working on that. I think, we'll give it till mid to end of October, and then it should be hopefully much better and get some of our subcontractors involved if we have to. The acoustics, again, I've mentioned this before, but acoustics in our science rooms and art rooms, though the mock-up is done, and now we're looking at the cost of that and sharing that cost with the Department of Education. And then lastly, we do have some windows in this building that need to be tested again and repaired, and that will be something that unfortunately will be done next summer, just because we just don't have the time to be able to do that with students in the building. So those are probably the three major things that we still have going on in this building, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Any questions of Patrick on the high school? Yep, Jen?
Patrick, is there a schedule for when they come back and retest everything? I believe we talked at one point about recalibrating or retesting all of our systems every so many years. Is there a schedule for that?
There isn't yet. That would be something that if you're talking about more about the HVAC system, right? Yeah. So no, that's something that we'll work out through one of our subcontractors, probably after we get, the building where we want it at the end of October.
Okay. Any other questions of Patrick? I think Patrick also included a note in his Friday report that given that we've now been in the building for 5 or 6 months and have had the official ribbon cutting, this may be a less than regular item on our agenda going forward. I mean, as issues come up, for sure, they'll happen. But whether or not it becomes a regular item of the budget will be, or excuse me, regular item of the agenda will be dependent more on what issues come up and need to be discussed. So, yeah, Jen.
Instead of removing the entire 7.1, or could we, instead of having it a Morse High School building project update, could we get an update on other buildings or the status of replacement of other schools?
I think what we do is probably just have it as a facilities committee update, just because that's what, I mean, we have one tonight. We don't meet every single month, but when we do meet, and that is, those are things that we talk about as facilities would show up on here.
Okay. Okay, thanks again, Patrick. 7.2, we don't, there really isn't a finance committee update. That probably should not be on the agenda at this point. We did meet. The subject of our special meeting on the 20th was to deal with that tax issue, and the finance committee, met regularly up to that point, but there hasn't been a meeting subsequent to that. So 7.3 facilities committee update. Bill, do you have any?
Yeah. As you will recall, the facilities committee had asked Patrick to move forward with an investigation into the electricity issue with the solar farms and the presentation that we had from Envision. And he had another vendor come in and make a similar presentation to facilities, talk to districts that have already implemented the program, and understand it's quite well received. And our legal beagles took a look at it, and I believe you got enough material explaining their advice in terms of legal and how to go about contracting properly if in fact we decide to do so. Pat, how about the other presentation? Did it go well?
Yeah, I think the next steps are really for the facilities committee to decide to recommend a company to go with, and then bring it back to the board with a recommendation. But these contracts are, again, I just want to remind you, this is about investing in a solar farm that would be someplace in Maine. Typically, it's over a 20-year period, and the estimates right now are of savings runs between $750,000 over a 20-year period, as high as a quote we've received was $1.4 million. And again, it's a 20-year contract, and I think facilities committee would have to decide on the company as well as the percentage that they want to go forward with the net energy billing credits. So in other words, it might be 75 to 90% of our electricity costs on an annual basis that we may want to have this contract for. And so Drummond and Woodson would be drafting up a contract with us, and then we would present it with a recommendation from the facilities committee to the full board at some point here in the near future. But
the other issue relative to this was the length of the contract. It surprised me initially, and I see where others are committing to that length of time, but one of the vendors that came in apparently will work on a 10-year contract. So these are all considerations. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered, but it sounds great, and I hope we can move forward to it when we're ready to.
Thanks, Bill. Does every, when we discussed this, or, Bill raised this at our last meeting, and frankly, I didn't quite clearly understand exactly what was being proposed. I did attend the meeting of the facilities committee, wasn't last week, or was it? Yeah, I guess it was last week, and sat through the other presentation. So as Patrick and Bill said, I mean, the proposal that that the facilities committee and Patrick would like to bring to the board, essentially has us contracting with a supplier who would source electricity out of a solar farm. We receive credits against our CMP bill if we elect to participate in this. My understanding is there's no cost to the district. And as Bill indicated, there are issues related to the terms of the contract, which I think we all would like to see some clarity on before we, elect to go forward. But I'm hoping, I would hope, if not at the next meeting, soon after that we can get a detailed presentation from the or recommendation from the facilities committee, and if the board feels it would be helpful perhaps to have the recommended vendor at that point to come in and give a presentation to the board, so we all have a better understanding, I think, of what's being asked of us before we agree to go forward. So. Okay, does that seem okay to folks? Yep, Jen?
Yes, thank you. I think that'd be helpful. And I'd also like an opportunity, if, we could get any kind of feedback from aspects of the contract that Drummond Woodson is providing. If there are areas in that they think are important to, protect ourselves against, areas that they see potential liabilities for us, an ability to ask them some questions too, because I don't think that we're all going to understand the meat of the whole thing, but it would be a good opportunity if we had questions for them, we could do that before making a vote on it.
There, Drummond Woodson, I mean, there are many districts in the state that are already participating, and Drummond Woodson does have an attorney, not Mike, but another attorney who has specialized or worked on these contracts. So they have a lot of familiarity and understanding of this process. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Bill. Okay, Jonah, good to see you. How are you? 8.0 Student Board Representative Report.
All right, great.
You're on.
So coming back 5 days a week, I hope I speak for everyone when it's been very, very positive in terms of our learning experience. It's good to be back with everyone full time and using the new facilities to their full potential. The seniors are pretty slammed to start off the school year, I think is safe to say, with college applications and all the traditional extracurricular activities. We moved into Spirit Week this week, which will be, I think, the first Spirit Week in the new building, or the first, full-on Spirit Week in the new building, which is pretty exciting. The way the new schedule is blocked out, I think has received mixed support among the students. I think the RTI or builder block that they've built in, I think, has been generally pretty helpful in terms of getting students to meet with teachers who they may need to see for extra support, or like I personally have met with Mr. Stanton about a college essay a couple times. I think it's a good resource for students. And I probably should have mentioned this under 7.1, but something I've noticed is there's still a couple places in the building where the intercom is inaudible. That might fall under like acoustics, but like namely in the band room, I think it might just be like a safety concern. Like if there's a safety related announcement or something, it's very, very soft intercom in there. It's not really easy to hear. But yeah, good start to the year. Great to be back.
So for Spirit Week, what's substituting for the pit? Is there anything?
Actually, I think the lot out here, maybe. I think we're going to be having like an outdoor pep rally kind of thing. And I think that's where homecoming is taking place too. So still feeling some lingering effects of, so, but it's much, much better than anything we've done before, we've tried before.
Great, great. We do hear a touch of longing in your voice, so. And also, and I guess it's also a question directed to Patrick. Do you know what the process is for selecting another student rep to join you? Do you know where that is?
So in terms of like a timeline or a process?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't remember the first meeting I had last year, but I think it's like a couple more meetings from now. I think the SCLC plays a role in selecting the new representative. Miss Davis is on that. I think I can ask her.
Yeah, ideally, we're hopeful that somebody would be here next meeting, but that might be, it could be November. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thanks, John. Thanks. Okay, 9.0 Superintendent's Report. 9.1, Patrick, good news.
Yeah, first thing I'd like to do is just introduce Mark Parent, who's here tonight. I asked him to come just to put a name with a face. He's from First Student, and he's located out of Augusta, though. So we have Mark as a resource, and then we also have Amber Karen, who is our dispatcher here, and they're located at the Woolwich Industrial Park. If you drive in the back there, you'll find them. And so, we have had some issues with First Student this year as far as working out the kinks at the beginning of a year, especially in a year where we're welcoming back students that might have been homeschooled, that have done remote learning, and we never dismissed or all of our students or dropped off all of our students here at the new school to know how that would work. So there was a lot of details to work out, and I do appreciate their flexibility as we went through this. And we continue to work closely together to make sure that we get our students home safely and to school safely, as well as in a timely manner. So thank you, Mark, for being here tonight. Some other things, just I'd like to thank the staff for all that they've done. At the beginning of the year, they spent a lot of time reviewing routines, expectations, just about how to be at school, but also, with a layer of COVID as well. And, and also they performed a lot of academic assessments in the first month of school and at the elementary level. And also now they have been gradually introducing the curriculum at all of our levels. But thank them, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the meeting as well. Open houses, we've had a couple happen. We have more coming up. And again, we have made some modifications. They're going to look a little different than previous years, but at the same time, to try to make them as safe as possible. But at the same time, we want to have parents and guardians be able to come into our schools to see the classroom, to see the teacher. So again, they'll look a little different. You may have a couple things in the principal's reports. Pittsburgh was awarded a Subaru grant for $3,000 and decided to spread that out over all their teachers down there. So we bring in a fair amount of money during a year through grants, and congratulations to Pittsburgh. Flow, we've had Flow going on for our 8th graders, and we worked with Chewonki to make sure that we could still do this program in a safe manner. And so usually this is going out to an island, spending nights there. And this has been a day program for our students. And I think we had the highest participation rate that we've had from Woolwich in the first week that we went. And so again, I'd like to thank Chewonki and also Brandon and Jason for being so flexible in our staff, but they've still been able to experience, the paddling, the canoeing, exploring all that Chewonki has in that natural outdoor environment. Other activities include navigation skills, art lessons, outdoor living skills, and the natural science lessons that are there. And then lastly, just I think you saw in Julie's notes, since 2017, Bath Tech's enrollment has gone up, a remarkable amount. 70% increase by that amount. And again, we reinstated the electricity program, added cosmetology and exploratory, but still, it's really nice to see those programs busting at the seams and us sometimes having to turn students away. And having people come through on the tours last week, they were very impressed with our tech programs. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Any questions of Patrick? Jen?
Patrick, is the Flow program this year, is it mixing students BMS and Woolwich, or is it separate schools?
It's separate just because of the daily piece. We, felt like it was just from a convenience, not convenience, but from a schedule standpoint, it just, and from a staff being able to go and attend, that's what we chose to do this year.
And is there any cost to families for that?
There is not this year.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Patrick? Hopefully, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jen. I mean, the flow model, what sold me, that didn't sell me on the program totally, but there were other positive attributes of flow, obviously, but the idea of being able to introduce those students from Bath Middle School and Woolwich in this program was a very positive thing, I think, for us. So hopefully when we get back to a little bit more normal activity, that will return to that model of integrating our students from those two buildings. Okay, 9.2, you have in your packet the list of fundraiser requests, and we just provide this, or Patrick just provide, or Deb, whoever compiles this, provides it for information. It's not an action item, but just to let you know what fundraising activity is underway at the various buildings. Any questions on that? No. Okay, 9.3, financial report. Deb.
Is it all ready, Damien? I guess you can hear me. So tonight we're looking at the month ending August 31st, 2021 in your packet. So we're just beginning the fiscal year of 22. So based upon our $38 million budget, we've spent about 2.4 million. And the majority of this right now, it just reflects salaries for July and August contracted employees. The September employees will be reflected next month, and that's all your teachers. So that's when you'll see, a larger boost. Basically, a lot of supplies have been ordered, technology, software, David's operation and maintenance projects that he's done throughout the summer. So those are the types of expenses that we've seen through July and August. And so we've spent about 6.4%. For revenue, we've brought in about 15.7%. So things are rolling in. Of course, that has to do with that larger amount of subsidy. And then some of that, like you voted on at the special board meeting, some of that will go back to Bath and Woolwich. As far as the federal funds, basically, what we're spending now is the ESERF 2, and that is, as you see the little note at the bottom of the page, that's basically funding 11 full-time equivalent teachers and 8 ed techs. And just to also let you know, as far as the general fund for staffing, we've had 39 new staff basically in and out, 23 new bodies. So some of those were people before that were moving into other positions. So it's been busy in payroll. Morse High School, we're down to the balance is 733,000. So we're just finishing up, some of the last minute items there. So we're starting off, we're in a good place, and we'll be spending more next month, definitely.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
Questions?
Yep. Any questions of Deb? As far as the ESSER 3, the new federal money, is the application is at what point?
Yeah, Patrick and Katie finished it just the other day, and it's been submitted, so I would assume that, approval will come through with that. And soon.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Nope. Thanks, Deb. Item 10.0, old business. We have none listed. 11.0, new business. 11.1, reopening update. So Patrick and Katie, I don't know which one of you.
Yeah, I'll start. Just I'm going to go down through some data points and see what questions you have, and then I'll turn it over to Katie for pool testing. I sent this to the board, but just so for the public is just opening school for enrollment. The first number that I list represents what we ended last year with, and then the second number I read is what we started this year with. So at Dyke Newell, 243 is what we ended, and we now have 241 students. Fisher Mitchell was 207. We're at 198. Pittsburgh, we ended last year with 92, started this year with 93. Woolwich, 288 to 278 now. BMS, 335 to 324. And then Morse ended last year at 619, and we're at 628. So that's enrollment. As far as COVID piece, we've had 5 positive cases. 2 at Morse, 2 at Woolwich, 1 district-wide, and it resulted in 4 close contact quarantines. And again, like I said before, I'd like to thank our staff, students, and especially our nursing staff for all they've done to date to keep our school community as safe as possible. I think to remind people, I mean, as public schools, we're acting as an arm of the public health. I mean, we're testing, we're collecting, we're reporting information about COVID, what seems like nonstop. But to put this in perspective, as of today, Maine schools reported 2,080 cases since the beginning of the school year. Staff vaccination rates are due on the 10th of every month. That will open this Friday, and we will begin to, work on that so that we can double check it. I only expect, obviously, that our staff vaccination rate will go up because we hired new staff, and we had, we may have had staff that didn't turn in their card, and and over the last month, may have. And so again, our average is around the 75%. And again, we would expect that to be higher when we report that in October. The student vaccination rates, I guess I would say as a district, I still would say 55 to 62%. And again, we'd expect this to be higher as well. And we plan to update that around the same time that we have to submit the staff to the state. It's just our nurses have been overwhelmed. And so, when families might bring a vaccination card in, we just haven't had a chance to really, put that into our database and really feel good about the accuracy of, or that we need to do that. So for student vaccination rates, BMS was 51 were fully vaccinated, up to as much as 59% if you count fully vaccinated and students that may have had 1 shot. Woolwich was 47 to 54 range. And then Morse was 59 to 65 range. 59 to 65 Morse. And again, we would expect these to be higher. So I would say hopefully around the October 10th, when we have to submit the staff ones, that we're be able to have some updated student vaccination rates for you as well. And, we have, there's that continued talk about when vaccinations will open for the younger, and whether, and I'm sure we'll be proactive to work with Midcoast to say, when we get that word, how can we organize something, within the district or collaborate with them. As far as masks go, and then I'll turn it over to Katie for pool testing and then open it up to questions that the board might have. But extra masks are available in every classroom, main offices, other common areas in our schools. And I did check with all, our principals and directors. Mask breaks are happening every hour. It may not be exactly in the classroom, but between regular class breaks, recesses, lunch, specials outside breaks, they all feel very comfortable that there is plenty of mask breaks during the day. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Katie. And again, then we can open it up for questions.
Okay, in terms of pool testing, I passed around a little half sheet of paper that has the newest numbers on it. And so I counted new participants in pool testing since September 9th. You can see the number across the district went up by about 103 new people since we last sort of, I mean, it's a rolling deadline. And the 9th was one of the first sort of stop dates to get in the first pool. And so since then, we've had 103 people join. So obviously, all the percent in the schools went up with all the new additions of people filling out the consent form. As a district, we're at about 44%, as you can see from the bottom line on the chart that I created. In terms, I'm happy to answer specific questions about how it's going. I'll just give you a brief overview. We've basically, through trial and error, have found that there are two ways that are sort of the most efficient to collect the samples. And it really depends on the size of the building, the schedule of the building, how easy it is to get the rolling cart from place to place. And so the schedule has been tweaked a couple of times. At Morse, because of how the students move and the periods changing depending on the day and whatnot, it's actually now going to be teachers having put out the cup for students and themselves to do the swabs on their own, and the nurses go and pick everything up, versus with the younger students, the cart is rolled around to all the different classrooms. And so those two systems will continue to tweak as we move forward. But I would say in general, we found it's a very efficient way to get a lot of information. One of the 5 cases was actually found through pooled testing. And, at this point, in terms of how things are running, we had our one RN through their staffing, this DOE staffing company who started. We now had another RN start today, as well as a site coordinator. And so those, with the new people working here, they'll be in charge, rather than me doing all this, they'll be in charge of the courier pickups and checking the pools every day and making sure that the follow-up testing is done if needed. And so that's great because we have even more person power to help with everything. When we do get a positive pool, which obviously happened because one of those, as I just said, was found, it was a very simple procedure to go back to the members of that pool, send the RN back, and then she did the rapid antigen tests. And so within 15 minutes of each test, we were able to have the feedback around who of the PCRs that were done was the person carrying COVID. So, and I think that other than that, it's definitely been like anything new. We every day I feel like our practices get more efficient and effective, but it's great that after the first day we've been able to collect all the samples regardless of how bumpy it has felt. And now I feel like we have a really smooth process that has very little instructional time lost for kids and for teachers, which is great. Any questions?
Okay, so any questions of Patrick or Katie? Yeah. Oh, Lorna, I'm sorry.
Hi. I just, it's really just confirming, I think I already know the answer, Katie, to the pool testing population is students and teachers.
Yeah, it's students and teachers. And actually, I was thinking about this when the numbers are being read off. The one that's always a little funky is Dyke Newell, because when we read our enrollment, it includes kids in the choices programs at Head Start and the Y, but on this, obviously, they're not in the pool. So yes, if the numbers seem a little off at Dyke Newell, specifically, it's for that reason. For other reasons, if you wrote down those previous enrollment numbers, it's because it's staff and students.
The pool testing participation of staff and
Correct.
students.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there, next month, is it possible to get a breakdown of students and staff? The percentages, I'm just curious as to what is staff and what is students. the percentages? Curious how many students are participating.
I can absolutely do that if you guys want me to. I would have to go line by line through the 884 accounts, which is fine if you would like me to do it.
I don't want it to be burdensome. I was just
Okay.
curious. No, I don't want it to be
The
burdensome.
way the program's set up, it's supposed to be done so it's not easy to find that information for me because it's supposed to be somewhat anonymous, even though I know the names. So there's no like teacher code or student code. So it's not private information, but they purposely make it so anybody who's going in can't just see that off the bat. So it does take a little bit more work.
Okay.
But I'm happy to do it if you guys want me to.
Unless someone else does, I was just curious.
Okay.
And then the rapid antigen test is, that was used to try to isolate that single case, but I'm assuming the student has to follow up with a PCR before coming back. That was a question I was going to have on, are we accepting rapids for students who are out? Did I make that clear?
Yeah. For the individual or anyone who has had COVID, there's certain procedures that they have to do to follow that their doctor gives them. We don't get to determine when they're coming back necessarily.
Okay. And then a student, if it's off topic, let me know, but a student who maybe at home has symptoms and mom gives the student a rapid, we're not accepting those as proof of no infection.
I believe we are accepting rapids if they're done at a clinic, but we can't accept home tests.
Okay.
And that is in our guidelines that rapid, Dr. Hannah did approve that rapids now are allowable.
Okay. I was just curious, 'cause sometimes it's hard to get into clinics and people have to wait, but,
Well, by clinics, I meant Walgreens, whatever, any place that's
Okay.
testing for COVID.
I got you. All right. That's it for now. I'm going to let other people talk. Thank you.
I mean, no, did you say that we don't accept rapid home tests, or we do? I couldn't.
Not ones that you can do on your own.
Okay.
The accuracy is not where we would like it to be at, or where the
Okay.
nurses and Dr. Hannah would
Okay.
like it to be. But as long as you get it at some sort of facility, rapid or PCR tests are now
Yeah.
both allowed
Okay.
for return to school.
And I don't want to create an added burden, but I I could be off base on this. I mean, I think pool testing is perhaps, I know all these mitigation protocols have a place here, masking, distancing, pool testing. But in my mind, pool testing is critical because it helps us identify those groups. And so, my question, there's a question here, which is, are we involved in a continuing effort to encourage people to sign those consent forms and enter the pool? And so knowing how many are students and how many are teachers would help us in that outreach, I think.
Sure.
And let me just, because I don't want to create a burden on you. I agree, but I think Lauren has a good point. I mean, if there's, even if you were to choose what you think might be a representative building, and just give us a,
I would feel more comfortable counting them all and giving you guys actual numbers,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to do
Yeah.
that. I mean, I would say with the efforts we've done to continue to publicize this in newsletters, and then Patrick and I did tweak the announcement, the all district letter that goes out when there
Yeah.
are close contacts, with the consent information in it and encouragement to sign up. And so even since Friday, I was able to see that quite a few of these new signups actually came after that letter went
Yeah.
out. So every time we
that's great.
we share
That's
it, I think
great.
it's compelling for
Yeah.
people to get involved when they
Yeah.
see that, some of the close contacts we have had to quarantine had other close contacts in their rooms who did not,
Mm.
because they were either vaccinated or they were in pooled testing.
Yeah.
And so I think people are starting to understand that there are ways that keep students and staff in school.
Yeah.
And so that's great. So I will absolutely I
Yeah,
can get those
again, I
numbers for
don't, you
all.
know, I respect your time and I
It's
don't
totally
want to
fine.
burden you, but I think just in terms of outreach, you know, are we trying to get to teachers? Are we trying to get to kids? You know, I mean, I'm sure we're trying to get both involved.
Well, the
but-
announcements go out to everybody.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, the idea would be everyone, you know, even people who are outside consultants are, some of those are in our pool. Some people who work for Chewonki are in our pool. Our custodians are in our pool.
Yeah.
And so.
No, I asked Patrick how I could get in the pool, but you have to, I guess you have to routinely come in the building for a purpose like a vendor or a consultant or something.
Mhm.
And I didn't qualify. Oh, well. Okay, any, you know, further questions? Jen?
So I guess to Katie, the pool testing software, I think we had some up-ramping problems with that. Is that resolved, or is it available and easy for our nursing staff to use?
Yeah, it's actually incredibly easy. I'm on it every single day. And it was just that first day at Morse was a case of the company not have loaded the new nursing accounts in. And so they just got started very late in the day and couldn't get to everybody because their accounts hadn't been properly set up with all the privileges and whatnot that they needed. So, yeah.
And on that topic, if you think that there's anything the board could do to support the nursing staff in terms of a additional clerical, you know, resources that they need, you know, staffing people or something like that, I personally appreciate how much they've done and really don't want them to get burnout and not be available to us throughout the year or next year, you know, so please let us know if there's anything that we could do in terms of supporting the funding for
Yeah,
their
they're
assistance.
working incredibly hard, and I'll let them know that you've said that and
Yeah.
ask them for you.
Okay, thank you. And Patrick, I just had a question for you, and it wasn't really about a topic that we've covered in the reopening, but I was wondering if maybe next meeting we could get a report on, do we have any information on how many students have completed parents have completed the income eligibility for the hot lunch program, even though it's feeding everybody now? It'd be interesting to see if we're getting enough information. I'm very concerned that we might lose some sort of like Title I or federal funding based on the fact that we may no longer be eligible in ways we were before we had universal feeding programs. And I guess the last question was, did you say that the enrollment in Woolwich has gone down 10 students? Is there, everybody else's enrollment seems to be going up? Oh, okay.
Most of it, well, some of it sometimes is a smaller class coming in as a kindergarten, losing a larger, sixth grade or eighth grade, or
Right.
so it could be a lot of different things. But yeah, we had, I would say Fisher Mitchell, Woolwich, and BMS all go down about 10 roughly. And again, that can change a little bit. I mean, these were numbers from the first week of school.
Okay. And that will be it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any further questions? Oh, Pat, yep. Well, let me, go ahead, Lorna. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure we're still on the school reopening, right? Before we move on, I had a few more, but if anyone else has something, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I was going to lead up with Jen was saying on enrollment. Somewhere I thought I heard we had 40 new students at Morse, but it looks like the net is actually an increase of 9. Would that be right?
Yeah, again, it's a large class moving out, smaller class coming in.
Okay.
Some of those variables.
And also a request for next time. I know Bright Spice got off to a harder start last year because of the implementation during COVID. But I'm just wondering if we could get an update next month, just a check-in, because I know Rob had given us a presentation last winter. And what I'm really looking for, if we could have it, is if there's any analytics on parent, the parent piece on whether it's getting used uniformly across households. I've been on myself. I'm still not a fan, but I've seen improvements. Slow performance seems to be one that's the kids still struggle with on the Chromebooks. I think my son was counting how many seconds it took for each page to load. It was anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds, and the Wi-Fi in our house is fine. So just looking for parent use, specifically, it doesn't seem like parents can access grades there, but it looks like Infinite Campus is the place for accessing grades. And, just kind of an update on, staff too, staff training and what the situation has been as far as receptiveness of staff. And it can be next time. I don't want to put anyone on the spot right now. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Lorna. Do we have numbers on how many kids have taken a fully remote option? Do you have that?
I have them. There are, hold on, in the 13 in 2nd through 8th grade, and there are 4 at the high school. There could be 5.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, any other questions? I'm mindful with Lorna's question that last year at this time, all our focus was on hybrid, remote, and bright space. And now, Katie's presentation shifts a little bit. We're talking about in-class, protocols to keep kids in school. So things change, things do change. But I think that update would be great to get next time. Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Katie. And thanks all the administrators, teachers, and kids who have gotten us off to a good September anyways. Let's hope we keep it up. Item 11.2, we have a list of Schedule B stipend positions. This again is just an informational item. We don't vote on this list, but we will obviously take any questions that the board has. On Schedule B? No? Okay. Thanks. 11.3, this is marked as an action item. Annually, we deal with Dr. Hannah's agreement for services. Pat, this has been, if you drop down to the compensation line, she receives an amount of $3,050, and I'll ask Patrick or Deb to remind us how many years it's been at that level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been at least 5 years that it's been at that level. And I know that there's been years in the past where we haven't used Dr. Hannah that often. But I would like to, just consult with our couple other districts that use that same practice. And possibly, I'd like you to approve the contract tonight. But as far as that amount of money, I would like to, at least consider using some of our ESSER money to increase that amount. Not double it or anything like that, but I just think, we're going to, to be fair for this fiscal year, and then we can revisit it again. So
I think, I hope we would all agree that her advice has been extremely valuable to the board. And it is been reassuring to me to have her on the screen and give very informed, considered opinions on issues. It's clear from the way she's addressed this board and addressed the public on this issue that the FaceTime we have with her is only a fraction of the time she puts in in getting an understanding of COVID and how it affects kids, et cetera. So I encourage Patrick to look at other districts and perhaps hopefully come back with a recommendation on compensation that might exceed what we've provided her in the last 5 years.
So if you're okay approving it tonight, then what I'll do is make sure I communicate with you the amount before I sign it to make it official.
Is the board comfortable with that? Okay, great. No, that's great. So I'd just like a motion to approve the agreement for
So
Dr.
move,
Hannah.
Mr. Chairman,
We have a motion by Bill.
with our gratitude.
The second, any second? Second by Lou. Any discussion? So we're going to approve the contract. Patrick will come back with the dollar amount at our next meeting. Right?
No, before that.
Even before that. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Any discussion of that? No. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we have 6 policies. Item 11.4. First reading of board policies. And there are 6 of them. I'll read them off to make sure we all have them, and then take comments and questions that you may have. So we have policy BED, remote participation in school board meetings. Policy GBIA, staff participation in political activities. JJIAB, extracurricular activity participation regulation. Policy CB-R, which is the job description for the superintendent. JKAA, and this is a policy on the use of physical restraint and seclusion. JKAA-R, which are the procedures that accompany that policy on physical restraint and seclusion. So, any comments, questions on any of those? This is a first reading, so we're not taking action on these.
Are these just the usual, like they're coming up for like the restraint and stuff? Is that for any specific reason? I'm hoping I don't have to read into any reason that the superintendent's one is up, right?
No, sometimes we just go through by date.
Right,
Or
that's why
by,
I just- that's
by
what I figured.
section.
Okay.
I don't know if Anita is very knowledgeable. I mean, Anita, do you want to touch base on the
The updates to the ones for physical restraint and seclusion are in response to change in law. So it's just additions or changes in the policy to reflect the law. And my understanding is we have had legal counsel on the wording and language of it. And we've asked for a few different changes here and there. And we'll be looking at it again next month.
And then obviously the remote participation in board meetings is just something that was advised that we have, even though we've, been conducting them from time to time.
Yep, Jen?
The restraint policy, if we hadn't had Anita on our policy committee meeting, I would have been lost in the weeds. It's a very, it's got a lot of language and a lot of inference that I'm just not familiar with. So there was mention in our policy meeting that there is going to be a video available for staff. And I would really like it if we could also, as a board, have the opportunity to watch that video. In one part, it would help educate me, but it would also help me understand exactly what the staff is seeing on this level. And it's complicated and it's nuanced. And I want to make sure that I understand how we're best protecting both children and adults and understanding what other measures that are allowable and how to go about those things. So I don't know if it would be a time taken out of a board meeting as an educational opportunity for us, or something that we would just do on our own and then come back and ask questions too. But either way, I would like it if we could put that on the agenda. Thank you.
That's a good idea. I don't, I had a question, and maybe, Anita, you're familiar with it, or Patrick or Katie, that whether, on some of the training for the certification, I mean, the, staff is certified in restraint and seclusion procedures. Is that training from a vendor? Is it state provided, or is it this film that Jen is talking about? I mean,
I think so that we're 100% accurate, Justin, are you out there? I mean, I know we have people come in and do training, but I don't,
I
it's safety
can
care.
probably answer this.
But it's-
So we have some staff, depending on their position, that are trained in the entire program, including the potential physical aspects of it through safety care. We also have everyone through a video training program do trainings on that. And depending on what year staff are in, how new they are, what's required by law, we have a suite of videos for all of the legally required trainings that they do every year that are assigned through Katrina. She sort of is the keeper of those videos, and they get assigned through email addresses. So before, when you were saying that, we would, whenever we do the training, we can, because you all have RSU1 emails, you can have access to watch anything you would like on your own. But we can also use someone's account to watch it as a group at some point too, depending on if you want to have a group discussion about it. But yeah, our teachers do have to run through, depending on their role, sometimes both versions, sometimes just the video version.
a finer question on in terms of the procedure, it talks about two adults being present in the case of restraint or seclusion. And I was just curious, how many people are certified? I mean, is it required that both people be certified? And then that just led to a question. Do you have any, I mean, just a ballpark figure?
It's done by building. So we make sure there's always enough people physically present who would be trained.
Yeah, it's a team.
Yeah,
It's a team
there's
effort.
a team.
So again, I know this is kind of crude, I guess, but how many people per building do you think are certified? Is it like 10 people per building, or just give me a sense of?
I would say it's at least 5 people in each. It depends on the
Okay.
size of the building.
Sure. No, I understand.
Pittsburgh
Yeah.
doesn't need as many people as Morse or BMS or one of our bigger schools would
Yeah.
potentially need.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions?
Just a quick question. So I
Sure.
don't remember seeing too many job descriptions come through like this. Is that something that comes from the state, since it's the superintendent, since it's an overarching? I mean, I'm just wondering where the language comes from, or if you have any input, or.
We have a one on file that is a local one that was done, I don't know, 2012, maybe something like that. And Maine School Management has one that's very all-encompassing as well. And when I talked to policy back at the beginning of July, they felt like, I think they'd like to keep a local flavor to it, but at the same time, what I tried to do was add some things to it, to I don't know, encompass some of the important things.
It grows, it evolves.
Yeah,
Right. No,
so
absolutely.
that's
I just
was
was
a
curious. I was
combination
just
of
curious
both.
where it came from,
Yeah.
because I hadn't seen too many that was like this in a policy. So thank you.
And then the political one we didn't have before, so that's why it looks a little different. But that again came from Maine School Management as well.
Okay. Thanks. I had a a question or just a comment on JJIAB, which is extracurricular activity. And it strikes me that this is similar to comments I've had, previously if we visited this, that, we have a policy on extracurricular activity that in an overarching way deals with both athletic activity and other extracurricular activity. And some of the language used is still heavily oriented toward sports as the extracurricular activity. And I'll just give you, and it doesn't quite, match up with other extracurricular activities. And just in the red added language, I'll just give you an example that, if a student's required to miss a practice or event, et cetera, he or she needs to get approval from the administration or coach. So in an athletic situation, coach is pretty clear. If you're in the math club, it isn't clear. You're not talking about the advisor to the math club as being the one who gives the approval. You're talking about the administration. So it doesn't quite. Again, to me, it still doesn't quite fit. In terms of those references. The more comparable reference there would be that like I said, that the faculty advisor to the club would be the one, as the coach would be the one in an athletic situation. But here the implication is you have to go to a principal or an assistant principal to get approval. So I don't know if it were possible for the committee to just take a look again at where there are some of those where there are some of those references and just, still work to make them comparable for as they would apply to both sports and non-sport activities. But that's kind of a syntax kind of thing, I guess. Any other comments? These will come back to us at our next meeting for action. So
Thank you for all the hard work on this. You could see it took quite a bit to get all these going. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. 12.0. Next meeting date, our next regular board meeting is Monday, October 25th. We'll be back here at the high school. Any other business to come before us? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn. Okay, I have a motion by Lou. Second by Jamie. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.